welcome to another fantastic episode of Geeks Who Like Sports. It's episode 84, and wherever you are listening to us, we hope that it's either a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's been a while since we've done that. As always, I am Ray Carcillo in beautiful Los Angeles, California. Joined my best friend in the entire world over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lee Elias. Lee, how are you doing today?
Ray, it's Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this on release day, it's Thanksgiving. So the first thing we want to do is wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Turkey Day. Yes.
Yes, we hope you're all at home with no family and secluded and miserable. No, we don't hope for that. But happy Thanksgiving to everybody, depending on when you're listening to this. 84 episodes. It is beautiful here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The weather is crisp. It's a crisp day. I'll put it that way, but somewhere between the high 30s, low 40s, which is in hockey world very, 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 very wonderful. Right? And we have a great show today because the geek gods have given us lots of geek news. The sports gods have given us just football news, basically. And we have a good time here today. We're always going to have a good time. Episode 84, here we go.
Yeah, we have a huge episode, like Lee said. We've got a lot of geek stuff. We've got, obviously, NFL Week 11 breakdowns, though.
Oh, Ray.
Yes.
I forgot to mention. I'm sorry. I wanted to say this in the intro, and I forgot. Today's date, we're recording this on Tuesday, November 24th. Do you know the significance of this date for me? Not like me personally, but something is coming out today that I'm very excited about. And when you're listening to this, it's out. It's out there. So you can all get it today. Do you know what that is, Ray?
No, please enlighten us.
I want everybody to know, I pre-ordered this over 8 months ago. 8 months ago. And I've been waiting very patiently for today. It's going to arrive at the house at some point. If you hear my dogs barking, it's here. Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline comes out today.
Oh, look at that.
Right. I'm a massive geek with that book. I love that book. I love that film. So I know a lot of people out there listening to the show like that, but today's the day. It's out. If you forgot about it, here's your call. Go to Amazon, get it, Audible, whatever you get your books, however you consume your reading. Ready Player 2 out today. Sorry, I had to say that. I was very excited.
No, it's a great plug. I'll have to get it myself at some point, for sure. I've got a couple other books that I'm reading right now, but I'll definitely pick that up at some venture for sure.
I'm just gonna get it for you. Let's just be honest about it. It's just gonna show up.
Okay, well, I'll take it. So
happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for Lee getting me a book, and I'm thankful for all you guys out there listening to us. Like Lee said, it is a big week. Again, week 11 in the NFL. We've got wrestling news with The Undertaker. We've got Pokemon Go updates. We've got streaming service news galore. But as always, speaking of streaming services, we're kicking things off with the crown jewel of Disney Plus, our favorite show and yours, The Mandalorian. Episode 12 is now out. It's been out. And it's The Siege.
For those of you watching, I'm making the mask with my hands. Yes. But it doesn't look good, so I'm going to stop.
You look like an old-timey boxer who's trying to defend himself. We had in the 1930s. But so it'll be it was a big episode, folks. Another big episode after, again, the disappointment that was episode 2 of this season. We've had back-to-back barn burners, as good old JR might say, and this one it absolutely takes the cake. It was directed by Carl. First off, we should get out of the way. It was directed by Carl Weathers.
Right.
And he had his Game of Thrones Starbucks moment in this episode, unfortunately. For those of you who don't know.
Somebody did. Yeah.
Yeah, if you watch through the episode, because I missed it the first time. I didn't see it the second time, actually.
It's tough to see. It is tough to see. You have to pause the video at the right moment to see it, to be fair.
Yes, but some keen-eye observers noticed that a grip was in the background of of one of the scenes upon the Imperial at the Imperial base. Which we'll get into all of that later. I wanted to get this out of the way because this has of course been the meme going around. They're now saying he's part of canon. Calling him Captain Blue Jeans.
This is why Star Wars is better than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones just had a meltdown over it.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars fans just make it canon. They make action figures. They make it canon. It's on Wikipedia. Deal with it. That's what Star Wars fans say. Deal with it.
Yeah,
it's Captain Blue Jeans.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very, very funny. So we got that out of the way, unlike Carl Weathers, who did not get him out of the way of the shot.
I do want to say this, too. Carl Weathers, because he received a lot of praise for this episode aside from that.
Yes.
Retweeted almost every single tweet at him of praise. And he thanked everybody. I mean, we're talking hundreds of tweets. Yeah. If you go to his Twitter page, right? That's a gentleman and a scholar right there. A guy that takes every compliment he gets and retweets it. That's pretty incredible. So Carl Weathers was devastated when you died in Rocky IV. I'm not going to lie. When Ivan Drago punched you in the head, and you died. You told Rocky not to throw in the towel, thus sacrificing yourself to make a really good movie. But you're back now, and you're in the Star Wars universe, and we want you.
Yeah, we are. We want you. We want you, Grief. We want you, Grief. But so this episode, kind of we hinted at it last week. We said it was going to go either one of two ways. Either it's going to be a direct route to Ahsoka Tano, or as we also said, there's a chance that the Razor Crest was in bad shape, and so correctly we predicted he takes a detour.
Right.
And of course he takes a detour to Navarro, his old friends Kara and Grief, to fix up his ship. And also you also get a real sense immediately of how much time has passed, because Grief looks much older than he did when last we saw him at the end of season 1.
Right.
So you get an idea that it has been a while. Of course, Baby Yoda, I mean, he's 50-something years old, so I mean, it's not like he's going to grow a lot in that time period, so he's not really a good indicator of passage of time. But Grief, I think, is a clear indicator that at least a couple years has passed. And Navarro, it's turned itself around, along with Kara now as the marshal of that sector. She has, it's actually a great scene. It shows off her abilities. She takes down an Aqualish gang in the old Mandalorian armorer lair.
Which is deserted. The forge is off, and you can tell I guess Ray said time has passed, clearly. It's been raided.
And the whole planet's been transformed. It's got a school now, and it's which of course was also conveniently there to drop off Baby Yoda as a babysitter.
Right.
Which I'm sure at some point, I wonder if they're setting us up at some point, Lee, for that to backfire on Mando. That whoever he leaves Baby Yoda with is not going to be as competent as the protocol droid or frog lady or whatever.
Right. I'm just going to say, I wouldn't leave my kid in random spots around the galaxy. That's just me. I mean, I'm not a Mandalorian, but, that's probably pretty bad parenting at the end of the day. But we'll find out if that pays off or not. Again, you and I have different opinions on where that's going to go, but we'll figure it out. Again, great scene with Baby Yoda with the blue macaroons, and once again, great writing and directing there.
Macaroons are officially in the Star Wars universe now as well.
Blue macaroons, made by Blue Milk, obviously. So that's another little hint there.
Yes, exactly, which is a lot of fun. But that scene was also important for a lot of other reasons, is that if you pay attention, and again, me and Lee, we watch a lot of times with the subtitles on for this very reason, the protocol droid is talking about, and this has been laid out a couple times in a couple of books, but you've never really had it in Star Wars canon, the galactic map, saying it's the outer rim, it's the mid rim, it's the core planets, it's the inner core, it's the expansion colonies, and really kind of getting into the I mean, again, it's a galaxy a long time ago and a galaxy far, far away. It's a galaxy. It's a huge swath of space.
What's interesting about this is that this is heavily borrowed from the Legends books now. All right, so for those of you who maybe don't know, there was hundreds of Star Wars books that were put into this Legends category that made them not canon. But in all those books, there was always a map of the known galaxy. And that was the map that they were pretty much describing, which is kind of comforting, again, when you think about the expanding universe. But the idea, for those of you who maybe aren't huge Star Wars fans, is like the inner core and the core, that's where Coruscant is, that's where the New Republic is, that's where the Empire was. That's really like your political center. And when you get to the outer rim, these are outlying planets that people don't go out to a lot. It's typically known as a wasteland. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And we're seeing in this episode and other episodes that the New Republic is out there. They're trying to recruit people. They're trying to get people on the right page, if you will. With the way trying
to put
a
foothold in the outer rim, unlike the Empire, who kind of just let them. They had out, not to say the Empire, obviously the Empire had outposts out there, but they kind of just, for the most part, let it go on its own.
Right.
But it's speaking of the outposts, obviously Grief is he's like, oh, we'll fix your ship up as good as new, Mando. But you're going to have some time on your hands. You might as well help us take out some Imperials.
Yes, and unveil a major plot point in the process.
Yes. They basically explained that there had been an Imperial outpost on the other side of Navarro. That's where all of Moff Gideon's stormtroopers from the end of the season 1 came from. That basically there is an Imperial outpost on Navarro, even though the city that Grief is now in control was kind of like left alone. The Imperials, it was officially an Imperial planet, and now Grief is basically like, I just want the remnants of the Empire off my planet for good. I don't want the Republic here either. I want to be truly independent, and for us to do that, I need your help blowing up this base.
Right, and the episode ensued to do that. again, when they get to the base, and again, obviously, spoiler alerts if you haven't seen it yet, although the embargo is over if you're listening to this.
Yes.
But, they get to this lab, and you find out it's a lab. And there's some great Easter eggs in this episode. Actually, rewinding back when they're in that kind of main city of Navarro, there's an IG-11 statue there to pay homage. It also shows you how much time has passed. I mean, how long does it take to make a statue and commission a statue?
Yeah.
But they get to the lab, and the whole show really opens up here, right? So first off, there's this tank-like vehicle where one of the characters says, "You know how rare this is? You know how much we can get for this?"
We should mention who that character is. Mithril the Polywog from the very first episode of the Mandalorian, who he put in carbonite, is now working for Grief. Grief let him go and let him out of his bounty, and he still owes Grief for, I think it's 300 years of service.
350 years or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he ends up being the driver, and he's also, it's played by Horatio Sands, Saturday Night Live alum. He obviously provides the comedy relief for this episode.
Right.
So he's the one who points out a new vehicle called the Trexler Marauder. Sorry, Lee, I wanted to just put him.
No, it's fine because apparently that's a very hard to find toy, right? And that's why they made that joke. That, how hard it is to find one of these, how much we'll get for this. Yeah. And that's one of those like fourth wall breaks kind of that this show does. But if I may, Ray, when they get into the lab, we find out all sorts of things. If you want to jump into that I can't wait to speculate about with you.
I mean, this is really the huge plot points. This is something that we've actually talked about off air a couple of times because Dr. Pershing, who is of course the doctor who is hired by Werner Herzog, he's the one who's doing the experiments on Baby Yoda, on the child. Lee had noticed, and I guess rightfully so, it looks more and more like this, that he was wearing not just an Imperial uniform, but more of a Camino uniform. Right. Of course, the Caminans are the ones who did the clone troopers. They specialize in cloning. So you wonder if, what he's doing. And they basically, the big reveal is that when they find out that this isn't just an Imperial garrison, but it's an Imperial lab, there's bodies in tanks, and basically, if you look closely, they look somewhat like Snoke. They look like deformed humans, and you wonder, and also Dr. Pershing reveals that he's run out of blood from the child, that they're specifically looking for his blood, because of course it has a high M count, aka midichlorian count, again, bringing that back in a way that's not so heavy-handed as in Episode 1, and then basically kind of saying that they're trying to use Baby Yoda's blood, what we believe, plus the remnants of the Emperor, because it looks like that is what Moff Gideon's grand plan is in terms of trying to resurrect the Empire with this lab, and again with these bodies, these deformed creatures inside the tubes that look very much like one of the early scenes from Episode 9, again of all these clone bodies, and that basically Snoke, we're assuming now that Snoke is a cross between the Emperor and the child, in some way, and that basically this episode is helping to explain one of the major holes from the new trilogy that really irked a lot of people, that was never really properly explained and very much glossed over.
It's important to mention that this scene is, I think, the first scene in Star Wars history that combines all three trilogies at once. Like you said, it's explaining Snoke, it's explaining the Emperor after he died in Return of the Jedi. It goes back to midichlorians. I mean, there's a lot combining here. I will note that I believe that to be Snoke, an early failed attempt at creating Snoke, because Snoke's music is playing over that scene.
Yeah.
And that was noticed by a lot of people, that Snoke's music is playing. But it makes a lot of sense, Ray. And the other thing, too, is that they said they couldn't get enough blood because the child is so small that they couldn't take a lot of blood without killing him. But this opens up all sorts of great possibilities that make a lot of sense. Like you said, if the Emperor is combining blood with the child, it could make a Force-sensitive clone that the Emperor could possess easily, right? Because of the high midichlorian count, thus explaining why Episode 9 happened the way it did. Which is again, it wasn't a most amazing Star Wars movie ever, but it's good to have these things connected. Yes. It also dived into some other things too, like Moff Gideon when we see him again in this episode towards the end, if I may, once we move past this. A few things. One is that I've noticed this since the first time he appeared, but it's time to really say it. He's trying to replace Vader. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
His chest armor looks like Vader's. He dresses like Vader. There's something there. And then at the end of the episode, two things are revealed. All right, there's a young Imperial officer that says, in the new era, you'll be rewarded in the new era, which is talking about the First Order being created. So we've already now been alluded to that the First Order will be explained most likely in this show, or the origins of it. Then we find Moff Gideon in a room full of dark troopers. All right, now dark troopers are a now canon thing that have lots of possibilities. In some storylines, they are using Anakin Skywalker DNA and blood to be somewhat force-sensitive stormtroopers. In some storylines, they are robots and androids, and some they are actual people. The point is, we don't know, but when you add in, and this is where we get to speculate, I'm all for Moff Gideon trying to emulate Vader and bringing in Anakin Skywalker DNA to create force-sensitive stormtroopers. I'm all about that, because that's the type of stuff in Star Wars that I love. I don't know if they're going to mention it, but here's the thing. Ahsoka Tano was Anakin's apprentice. There are a lot of things that are right there right now that make sense, right? Ahsoka, there's no way they have Ahsoka without alluding to Anakin at some point. I just don't see how they could do that.
Right.
Because the last time we saw Ahsoka, she was fighting Vader, right? Like in Rebels. The other thing I should note, too, is that we already know that the next episode is going to be one of the longest in the series. It's clocking in at over 44 minutes, I believe. So I'm going to guess this is the Ahsoka Tano episode. And I also want to note, we haven't seen Boba Fett again since the first episode. So I have no idea how that's going to play into this either. But I'm really excited with where this is going now. Again, this was a major show plot point that has been revealed, right? In the direction that we're going. This is kind of the episode I think we were waiting for. I will say on a side note real quick, I did go back. I was doing some work then. I started watching them again. And I watched episode 2 again. And this time I watched it without any anticipation of, I just saw Boba Fett, what's going to happen? It's an okay standalone episode. I wanted to reiterate that because like we've been saying it's the lowest ranked episode, and it is, but it's not a bad episode when you watch it on its own. It just doesn't fulfill anything. But I did want to say that because I did watch it again. And it wasn't horrendous. It's just it's exactly what we said. It's just not the best episode they've done.
Right. I mean, and again, it kind of talks about, again, that there's the little points of it establishes that the Republic is on the Outer Rim. We get that again at the end of this episode where Captain Teva, who was in that episode, comes to Navarro, basically following the Razor Crest, which, by the way, has an Imperial tracking beacon on it now, which is going to be a huge plot point.
Which is an opposite Boba Fett type thing.
Exactly.
To the Millennium Falcon and Empire Strikes Back.
Right, so you imagine that it's basically, obviously that's how Gideon is going to follow the Razor Crest, because he's still searching for the child. And by the way, just real quick to touch on it, remember, Kylo Ren somehow gets the helmet of Vader and worships Vader.
Right.
You wonder if Gideon somehow, because again, he's modeling himself after Vader, possibly with the Dark Troopers, like you mentioned, Lee. Sometimes they have Anakin blood. I'm curious to see if he ever finds anything of Vader in that kind of vein, and maybe that's again speculating and stuff. But
he's clearly a collector of artifacts. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be interesting to see how if they brought back the charred helmet somehow of Vader at some point as well.
I'm gonna guess that at this time period, Kylo is at least born. He's probably a very young boy, if not a baby. But Kylo's probably in the universe. I don't know if they're going to touch on any of that. At any point in the series, like steering away from the Skywalker saga.
Right.
It will be interesting to see this, but I'll tell you this: Moff Gideon with a tracking device on the Razor Crest. He's going to see Ahsoka. There's going to be some. This is going to be a big episode. I actually think this will be the biggest episode of the season, in terms of the plot. Before we get to the inevitable final battles and teaser for season 3. Right. Great episode. Really great episode.
Yeah. No, it was a great episode overall. And again, I mean, we know. The question is now: will Gideon get the child? My theory is that he will get the child, and then the rest of the season will be them chasing after Gideon to get him back. And that's when they team up with Bo-Katan, and then that's when all these threads that they've now established in the first 12 episodes really will start to come together. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, this next episode is going to be huge. We're all excited to see Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, and I think it's going to be awesome. It was a great episode, and I can't wait.
This is one that I typically don't, but I am getting my hopes up for this one, and I hope that it does not disappoint.
Agreed. So that does it for the Mandalorian recap of the week. Speaking of Star Wars, Star Wars got snubbed a little bit this past week as we move into the Game Awards. It's the annual Jeff Keighley The Game Awards. And now a lot of folks are talking, and a lot of folks, it did get one nomination, but a lot of folks are kind of miffed because they want to know why Star Wars Fallen Order did not get more nominations for the Game Awards this year. Now, for those of you who don't know, because Keighley, I mean, it's bottom line, folks, it's money driven, right? Jeff Keighley, instead of doing what the other award shows in gaming does, which is have them in February, like most award shows, he has them in December because he gets a lot of sponsors from different video game companies that pays his bills and obviously pays himself and pays his crew and all that other stuff.
Right, it's a holiday push.
It's a holiday push, right? So there's tons of advertising. It's a lot of special sales and things put into it. But by doing it in December means that he has to have this ridiculous cutoff, usually at the beginning of November. And as a lot of us know, a lot of the biggest games of the year, I mean, even this year, Cyberpunk doesn't come out until December 10th. Right. A lot of the biggest games of the year don't come out until the end of November or beginning of December. This happened with Fallen Order. Last year it came out just before Thanksgiving. And because of that, a lot of people felt the game was kind of forgotten in a lot of categories.
It was. I don't think it was. Because it deserves to be up there for a lot of nominations. It was a great game.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And so a lot of people were very mad. And again, this is another discussion of... And I get it that a lot of people are spending their money. But again, the people who are spending their money on game sales typically will also buy games in January or February or March because they're the ones who are going to watch a Game Awards show, right?
Right.
Grandma and Grandpa or Uncle Bob or whatever, they're not going to be watching a video game awards show traditionally. No. They're not the ones looking to get games for little Billy, although that is changing now as our generation is becoming the uncles and aunts and parents and whatnot, sure. But for the most part, most of the target audience for the Game Awards is that early 20s gamer with disposable income. And guess what? They're still going to buy games in January or February. It feels unnecessary to have this ridiculous cutoff, to have the show in December. Because, again, the year isn't over. The Cyberpunk drops the day the awards show airs this year.
Right, and they won't forget to nominate that next year. Here's the deal, Ray, is that it's a simple game of they don't think anyone's going to buy Fallen Order this year, so it was replaced by games that people thought they were going to buy. It's that simple. And again, unless they have some legit reasons why that wasn't a Game of the Year nominee or anything. I mean, it was one of the stuff, right. It was one of the better Star Wars games I've played. This is the best Star Wars game I've played since The Force Unleashed 1.
Yeah.
Right? That's saying something. That's 10 years. No, it's more than 10 years ago, right? It's like 15 years ago that game came out. We won't talk about The Force Unleashed 2, which was one of the worst games that ever came out. All right? But, look, it's a money grab. It doesn't do them any favors. They could think outside the box and find another way to do something in December if they wanted to boost holiday sales, like have a fan vote.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
People want to buy what their friends have, you idiots.
This year they are allowing fans to have more of a say in everything, but still it's one of those things where, I mean, I also understand that most of the nominations are put together by 80 or so Games Press. At one time I was part of that.
Right.
But it's also one of those things where, I mean, I get it. Like, not every person in the Games Press out there, and I was actually talking with somebody about this the other day, it's like, we grew up on Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past and stuff to that. A lot of the games journalists out there now, they grew up on Minecraft and things like that. And they don't necessarily, I don't know, I just know this from my experience. I was very meticulous. I kept lists. Lots of lists for games that were eligible for Game of the Year and all this other stuff. Like, it was very important for me to make sure that the games that deserved recognition got the recognition when the time came up for them. That's not the case with everybody, and I get that. There's a lot of other things going on, and a lot of things.
I'm with you on this. Like, this is your profession.
Yeah,
a lot of things going on. That's your job, and I said, you've always took this super seriously. I remember this.
Yeah.
Right. So, you had said to me too that it's like almost like people might have forgotten about this game.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You
what
know?
I'm trying to get to the point is that it feels like
Right,
that
which is ridiculous.
they just forgot, and I think that's really a shame, and it's a travesty, and it's you know, and there's a lot of folks out there who need to do a better job. The people who do the nominations, you need to do a better job. And I know that there were some out there who did vote for Law and Order because they were some of the more vocal ones on Twitter.
Right.
But, you know, like it, you know, when you have 83 outlets voting, obviously it's some things get watered down, I think. And it just, this is whereas the Dice Awards is the Oscars, right? It's the it's the game makers voting on best games of the year. This is kind of like the Golden Globes. This is where the press is voting on games of the year, and the press needs to do a better job. That's basically
imagine that. That's in every front.
Yeah.
Anyway, Fallen Order, top 5 game of the year. Should have been a top 5 game of the year. In my opinion, it was really, really.
It should have been. I'm not saying it should have won a bunch of awards, but we don't know if it
no,
would. You know,
I'm just saying it's a top 5 game. It was a top 5 game. I don't game anywhere near as much as you, but it was easily a top 5 game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was top. I have my list from last year. I don't know if it was top 5, but it was at least top 10.
Easily,
definitely.
Yeah.
Like, and again, it deserved at least to be nominated in more categories than it was. So, but some of the other interesting announcements that came out this week from video games. This one I was super excited about, and people, I kind of knew it as soon as I heard the first musical note because. There is no more iconic theme than the James Bond theme. And the guys who are doing it now, who have acquired the license to make a James Bond game, IO Interactive, these are the guys behind the Hitman games. This seems like a perfect marriage. All they did was a teaser. All they basically said is, yes, we are working on a James Bond game. It's called Project 007. Imagine that. It's going to be a young James Bond, they said, where he has to earn his license to kill. Which to me is intriguing. But yeah, I wonder, I imagine it's going to be very similar in many ways to the Hitman games, which of course is you're a secret agent dropped into a location and you have to be very, very stealthy as you work to eliminate your targets. And I wonder if it's going to be something similar to that, but of course along the way you'll acquire Russian intelligence or romance a woman and add a couple extra elements of Bond to it. But I'm super excited. The IO Interactive has a great pedigree. I'm super excited this game was announced. And I look forward to seeing and hearing more.
Yeah, this is what I'll say is that if there was a Mount Rushmore of games, there would be a lot of arguments that GoldenEye needs to be on that mountain. Especially if we're talking first-person shooter games, it 100% is.
Yes.
And the James Bond franchise has come close, but never made anything that has topped that game. And we're going on 30 years now. 25
I would say
years
it's even been on a pretty steady decline since that game.
Right. I would too. I mean, the follow-up to GoldenEye actually wasn't horrendous, but it's just they haven't, because it was basically GoldenEye again. But they haven't had a James Bond game since 1996 or whenever GoldenEye came out that has competed with that. Mm-hmm. And if this game can do that, that's great, because James Bond in gaming, yeah, I said that right.
Yeah.
It works. It works really well if they can pull it off. So this is going to be a good one for sure. At least I should say we're hoping it's going to be a good one for sure.
Yes, super hopeful. I wonder. I imagine that they'll maybe show more. I'm glad they probably. Here's my theory: is that when No Time to Die was supposed to come out, which will be around this time, I think they would have shown us more. But now I think they're going to take that time to polish it a bit more. When that movie does release, that's when we'll get our first true trailer.
Well, yeah, especially if it's an original story. Like, they don't want to compete with that movie. They want the movie to come out, tease it, and then because this is the last of the Daniel Craig Bonds, right? You get kind of that fresh start. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So I think you'll see that 1-2 punch after No Time to Die comes out. Other things that are finally coming out: the first Avengers DLC. The Kate Bishop DLC, which has been delayed now it'll be 2 months when it drops. Right. Dropping December 8th. Glad to see, obviously, Square Enix, after their financial troubles with this game, obviously sticking with it. Hopefully the other DLC afterwards is still planning to come. There's obviously now some speculation about how far they're going to continue to go with it. But the fact that at least this DLC will drop December 8th, probably again with another major update to Avengers. It's a big deal because for most of us, it's about the story. And this will definitely, obviously, I'll go back and I'll play it, and hopefully it'll hold my attention for a few hours.
Right.
And then again, the plan was Kate Bishop, then Hawkeye, then I think Captain Marvel and Black Panther, and then Spider-Man. Obviously, Miles Morales is a huge hit. If they were smart, they would try to get Spider-Man as quick as possible in that game, especially if they're trying to get people to come back to it, because people are leaving it in droves. But yes, that's a big deal that this game is that DLC is finally dropping.
Yeah, look, Square Enix needs a win. They need a big win, and
Yeah.
I hope that this DLC is the win, because as you said, Ray, it's people are playing this game for the story more than the expanded world. At least I was. I didn't play anything expanded once I beat the main storyline, and they need a win. They need something like you said it perfectly. They need to grab my attention again, and you need to continue that. So we'll see. You said they've come back from this kind of thing before. Or games have come back from this before.
Yeah.
It's too powerful of a franchise to not have potential.
Yeah.
So I think that we'll see what they do. But like you said, with especially with the new systems and stuff, when people might be able to upgrade it to an Xbox Series X or PS5. Like there's a lot of potential here, but they need a win. This can't be just okay.
No, I agree. I completely agree, and they need to get on that. So, so that's a big deal. Now, something I wanted to bring up. This is kind of we're gonna get a bonus question of the week here, folks, because this is we're gonna do one later in the show like we normally do. But this is something that came up that I think was really, really interesting in discussions. People are arguing we should drop the term indie in video games because at this point, indie video games are sometimes better, if not just as good at the very least, as a lot of these AAA games. The only difference is their budget or their team size. And what's happening is that obviously, yes, you have your... I personally don't think we should drop indie just because it's a moniker. There's still a negative connotation to indie for some, for sure, which I think has done a great job of dissuading more so in games than in movies, I think. Because indie games, they are system sellers at this point. They have shown to be huge profit-making properties. And you see some indies, like the guys over at Supergiant, they thrive. And you even saw a lot of indie games get nominated for big awards at the Game Awards this year. Not just best indie, but big awards all on their own. And so people are arguing, does it deserve its own category? And it's kind of one of those things where I can understand maybe not its own category, but I don't think we should lose the term altogether, because this does still connotate this was a small group of people. In some cases, one or just two people making a game, and I think that there should be an extra special light shown on the folks, the effort from those folks, compared to the $100 million budget, 600 person team, $100 million budget of some of these AAA games.
Right.
There's a huge difference. I mean, the fact that you have some of these indie game like Hades, which is made by I think like 12 people, competing against like The Last of Us, which was made by like 250. Like that's a big deal in my opinion. I think that I don't think indie's a negative thing. Lee, I wanted to get your thoughts on this discussion.
Yeah, no, I don't think the word indie is ever going away, but I equate it to the early days of streaming in Netflix. And like I remember when Netflix really came to the forefront was when what was that? Not Game of Thrones. When House of Cards was nominated and won an Emmy. Emmy?
Yeah.
Yes.
An Emmy.
Yes, not a
Yes,
Grammy,
Emmys.
an Emmy. I was right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal, and that was back in 2013. House of Cards won an Emmy, and at that time, right, nobody thought a streaming show could win an Emmy, and it wasn't taken seriously. And then all of a sudden, when that happened, everything changed. Suddenly, major movie stars and TV stars were flocking to streaming services, and we've landed here in 2020. The Mandalorian is there. The Queen's Gambit, was that the name of that movie on Netflix? Highest streaming movie of all time on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like who would have picked that? Who would have picked that film, right? So I equate it to that in the sense of indie games right now, or where streaming was 7 years ago. It's just, that's something people do. But my cable is, the main games are the real thing. You see where I'm going with this? So
yes.
I think that the name indie will stay there, but the connotation will start to change.
I think it's already starting to change, actually.
Well,
I think.
I'm saying you might reach a point where indie games and major releases are on the same level in the sense of, it's just looked at differently, like streaming in a major motion picture.
Right.
Right. And then I think you're also going to start to see indie developers being absorbed by some of these major places, just like streaming absorbed major motion pictures, right? Like the Irishman is a great example. Like
and we've seen this with Microsoft buying up small studios all the time, like
right.
So it's definitely possible that some of these indies will make a name for themselves and then no longer be indie and they'll be absorbed. So.
Right, but I'm saying I could see it saying like I said, the connotation on indie is not bad. It's just like it's just a different layer of game making that's not big budget, 600 people.
I think you're having this slight delineation between the two isn't a bad thing. So I think that I understand where people are coming from, saying that we don't need the term anymore.
It's not going to go away. Good luck with that.
Yes, yeah.
Good luck with that. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. But speaking of streaming services, though, we've got a lot of streaming service news, starting off with, I guess I'm going to have to get HBO Max for a month in December, because HBO Max made a huge announcement that on Christmas Day, Wonder Woman 84, by the way, fitting that it's our 84th episode of Geeks Who Like Sports, Wonder Woman 84 will drop on HBO Max the same day as it drops in theaters. This is a huge, huge deal. Obviously, it's COVID-driven. As they've somehow gotten around the exclusivity, 2-week exclusivity rights for theaters. I imagine it'll be for a limited time, maybe a 30-day run. You'll probably, and they said that originally. I think they said that it was going to be free, but I think that there is now possibly a connotation that it will cost at least a few dollars to get it through HBO Max, but that's still unclear. But either way, the fact that Wonder Woman 84, I'll happily pay an extra few bucks to get that movie on my TV through HBO Max. And obviously, though, this is clearly them. First of all, it is a huge deal, obviously, for streaming service, but it's obviously HBO Max taking shots at Disney.
Yeah, gaming it for sure.
Yeah, and obviously trying to get their numbers up, getting their subscribers up, because there's going to be a lot of people out there who even for a month will jump onto HBO Max or like probably me, be like, well, I have it now, and it's like Snyder Cut will be coming out in a few months. It's like there's other stuff on here. I'll probably just hold on to it now for a little longer now. And that's what they're hoping for, is that a lot of folks will jump on and stay on once they see what's available there, and this will be the catalyst to do that.
Right. There's a couple things to keep in mind here. One is that Disney Plus, and that's going to be the gold standard, obviously, had my support as soon as I found out, obviously, the catalog, but Mandalorian and the Marvel shows. That's why I was like, I'm going to buy this. Right. The biggest thing that Disney Plus did was get with the cell phone providers to give me a year for free.
Yeah. All
right. So I get a year for free of Disney Plus because I was with Verizon. HBO is probably not going to do that, but what they're doing is making a pretty strong case of you can't not have this if you're serious about these films. That's number one, because now they have, like you said, they've got us, right? Like, okay, now I do have to get this, which I was going to do anyway. I wasn't fighting it too much. Wonder Woman coming out on a streaming service is going to send shockwaves through the entire film industry. This is a major motion picture. HBO Max obviously did the research in saying that it was not like I think going back a bit, I think one of the reasons Marvel hasn't released Black Widow is because they were afraid or fearful that with their first female-led character from the original Avengers, that it would be taken like, of course you're doing that with a female character and not a male character, which I don't think that's the case. I don't think anybody would look at it like this.
It's just next. It was just next in line when this all happened.
Right. Right. So I think that Wonder Woman coming out opens the door for Marvel to say, look, we are going to release Black Widow at some point. They don't have to. Again, they can wait as long as they want. Yeah. We did ask this question on our Facebook group. We got a lot of people saying that they'll happily wait for it to be in theaters. But I want to see it. I want to see both of these movies. So I'm definitely going to be getting HBO Max.
Yep.
I do want to see the Snyder Cut. We should also say that the Snyder Cut sounds like it has 180 minutes of unused footage from the original cut. I was joking last week that we already know what happens in the movie. This is pretty clear that we don't.
Yeah.
I think we know we know some main plot points, but there's going to be a lot going on in this film. But HBO Max is going to have, again, Wonder Woman, They're going to have a lot of the DC shows. What was that? Not Young Justice. What's it called?
Teen Titans. There's Titans, Doom Patrol.
Titans. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like they're building up a nice little catalog here.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, people. HBO desperately needed something after Game of Thrones ended, and they've got it now. They have not had any show close to Game of Thrones, or the disappointment of Game of Thrones ending. Right. HBO just has a hard time ending shows for some reason.
Yeah.
Right, but this is huge. This is shots fired, and it's good for the consumer. It's good if DC and Marvel are going at it again.
Yeah.
And again, this is among rumors that, Ben Affleck is Batman, and there's so many things happening in DC right now. You just have to hope that it's not a balloon pop at the end, and it just, you have to hope this is going to be good, and we'll see. I trust HBO. I think they do know what they're doing. I don't think they know how to end anything, but they do know what to do when they have a storyline. And comic books never end, so that's their advantage.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that is the big thing for sure. I mean, and yeah, now the big question will be, will Disney follow suit with Black Widow and say, like, all right, in January or February, here it is. It's on the streaming service, right? Because I mean, it'll be a full year in May again. Yeah. It's been 7 months.
They're coming up on it. And the other thing too is, like, at some point these shows are going to merge in.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way they don't. Like, at some point, the shows are going to merge into the films.
Right.
So they're going to have to get... And I'm assuming that Black Widow has major plot implications on the future of the MCU.
At some point, and you wonder if this is also part of the reason... they delayed WandaVision again for a few more weeks. It's like, you wonder if they'll try and tie this all together better and really make Disney Plus more of the focal point for the Marvel Universe until we can get back to theaters at some point.
I'm not gonna lie, Ray. We could use it as a country, as geeks. I mean, I'm not saying this is the biggest priority in the country. Don't get me wrong, but like, it'd be nice. It would be nice. It's nice to hear Wonder Woman's gonna come out. That movie was delayed 6 months?
Yeah.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it was delayed. It was delayed like a year, and then it was delayed another 6 months because it was supposed to be in June.
I'm ready for it. And here's the other thing too. Pedro Pascal is a bigger star than he's ever been because of the Mandalorian.
That's also true.
And he's the bad guy in Wonder Woman 84. For those of you who don't know, so like, there's a lot of things going on here.
Yeah,
that means Pedro Pascal is going to be on both the services now.
At the same time, yeah.
At the same time, right? By the way, one of the things that's funny about Pedro Pascal now is outside Game of Thrones, where he has a heavy accent. Any movie in which he speaks now, all I hear is Din Djarin. And it's funny because I only saw this on TV, but there's going to be a sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
and he plays the adult Shark Boy, and he's speaking in the trailer, and I'm like, that's the freaking Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I was listening. I was like, he's talking like the Mandalorian. I was like, oh man, this is weird.
Yes.
But hey, good for Pedro Pascal. He's a star that continues to rise.
Yeah. Other people who are going to be on the streaming services, also really quick, by the way, HBO Max has also announced Conan O'Brien.
Excellent.
Is going to be doing a weekly variety show kind of thing on HBO Max. His show on TBS is going to sunset in the next year. No surprise. Which honestly, once it went from an hour talk show to like a half hour like interview show, we knew that was going to probably be the end game anyway. But now he's going to get to go to streaming services. He very funnily said when he's like, I'll never forget back in the early '90s, Johnny Carson gave me the age-old advice to get yourself to a streaming service as quickly as possible. In this business.
Right.
So I
love Conan O'Brien. Again, Conan O'Brien's always been an enigma because he's a traditional talk show host, and the reason why he didn't work on the Tonight Show was because we kind of leapfrogged his style of interview, but there's still very much an audience for it. So again, when he hosted the Tonight Show, that's when the Daily Show was exploding, and the major networks wanted to have political shows, and that's why Stephen Colbert is there now, and the Daily Show is obviously still a very big thing. Much to my dismay, I kind of liked that the Tonight Show and Late Night and all the late night shows were kind of not political free, but humorous in nature.
Right.
I have a hard time watching those shows because they have an agenda now, and it's just that's not while I'm watching. That doesn't mean there's not an audience for it, Ray. I'm not trying to knock anybody that does.
I mean, for sure. I mean, Conan always like he would dabble in the political stuff. Like you couldn't not when it was news of the day. It
was an escape though. Like
Conan's humor was humor. Right. He went out of the box. Like he wasn't afraid to be out of the box, and I think a lot of folks just didn't follow him when he went from 12:30 to 11:30.
It's a shame, and I'll tell you this too. Like I and Ray too. Like we're old enough. I used to watch Johnny Carson I did.
Yeah.
I used to watch Dave Letterman and Jay Leno, and Conan was always the perfect kind of follow-up to that. I remember being in high school watching Conan like on a mini TV in my room, without my parents knowing, of course. And you know, I'll tell you that it was an escape. Late night was an escape from your day. You have a beer, or you know, at that time like a juice, because I was a kid. You watch the late night shows.
Yeah,
that's my point. You watch late night and you forget about your day for a few minutes. Like that, I think that, and we could have a quick discussion about this. I'm not a fan of ultra political shows, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Honestly, at 10 p.m., I'm trying to relax. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying. Now we have election coverage episodes, and I don't know if that. This is my opinion, obviously. Feel free to give me your opinion, but it's just not what I'm looking for that late at night. I want to relax. I want to laugh and go to bed happy, and that's what Johnny Carson, especially Johnny Carson, provided. Leno and Letterman, and Conan. And Conan has always followed that. I would even give Jimmy Fallon credit for that. Jimmy Fallon kind of follows that as well.
He tries. And whenever he gets political, it always blows up in his face, so he tries to stay away from it.
And he's incredibly talented. He's an incredibly talented human being. And that's why I like Fallon. But when it comes to Colbert, with all due respect to Colbert, I'm not knocking him. But when it comes to Colbert and Jimmy, what's his name? Kimmel, I don't have a desire to watch that. It's not funny to me half the time, and it's too tense. Yeah. Listen, I gotta say this, and this is gonna sound like a shot at Kimmel, but it's more like I'm inquisitive. I don't know how Jimmy Kimmel, who hosted the Man Show, is allowed to sit on a pedestal of moral fiber. I don't understand that. I've never understood that. Like how conveniently people forgot. Like the Man Show when it was on. For those of you who maybe didn't see it. It would never fly today. I mean, no. I don't even know how they got that on the air back then, to be honest with you. It was toxic masculinity. If I had to describe that show, that's what it would be described as today. I watched it because I was a teenage boy.
I loved it at the time.
Right, but like even now that I'm older, I'm like, man, that was a little risque. I just don't understand how he gets the moral high ground of being on a Tonight Show. Or whatever the show is, and we ignore that. And he's funny. What's funny about him, and when he does funny stuff, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, he knows so many celebrities, but I'm going on a rant here. But there was always a place for Bill Maher. You know, there was always a place for David, before Bill Maher. I can't remember his name right now. David, he was on HBO. I can't believe his name.
Dennis Miller?
Dennis Miller. Yeah, but I don't want to go on a rant here. Remember you used to say that?
Yeah.
There's always a place for those shows, but now it's kind of mainstream, which I think is indicative of actually a larger problem right now with television. All right? Not that there's not a place for it. I just don't like it that it's in my face all the time. I just want to watch Black Widow and Wonder Woman 84 and be left alone. And Ray knows this. It's not that I don't follow politics. I'm very involved in that. Ray Ray and I are very well read historically.
Yes,
like extremely. Sometimes we'll have conversations like, I didn't know you knew that.
Yeah.
Of course I do. Right? But it's just like I want to relax every once. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with wanting to relax every once in a while?
Yeah,
Ray. Jeez.
Well, you know what might help you relax? You might want to get back into Pokemon Go.
Ooh, good transition.
Thank you. Pokemon Go is getting a massive.
I need a reason because I haven't been playing.
I've been playing less and less myself actually because the game has it needs this, folks. Thankfully, December 2nd, they are introducing the next generation of Pokemon, and also beginning of January, they haven't set a specific date. They are increasing the level cap from 40 to 50. All kinds of new rewards with that. Are available. They're also doing a double XP now from now until the end of the year in case you need to make that last run towards level 40. But yeah, it's a big deal. They're finally bringing some new stuff into the game. They're adding seasons into the game because certain Pokemon have certain forms in different seasons. So they're trying to incorporate different things. They are going to add new legendaries. They've still got regionals, which people are like, man, they were like hoping for a regional rotation, but understandably so that's going to hold on for at least the time being. But yeah, they're finally going to give a big update to Pokemon Go because like this happened to me at the end of Generation 1. They took a little too long to give another update for whatever reason, and they kind of dragged their feet, and then people they have to see this. Their numbers start to drop, and everybody's just kind of like, They did a stupid event with Team Rocket again a little while ago with the 12K eggs, which were super frustrating.
I didn't do them. I didn't even bother. Like that's part of the thing with the game now is you kind of know what you want to do and know what you don't want to do. And here's the truth, Ray, is this game always works best when it gets back to its roots, which is catching Pokemon that you don't have. And other things like that. And I think the problem with the last few updates, keeping in mind that this is still the biggest mobile game of all time,
right?
But the problem with the last few updates was they just were not fulfilling.
Yeah.
So like when you look at Mega Evolutions, they weren't fulfilling because you didn't get to keep anything. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, you get to see this.
For 8 hours, okay.
Right. I mean,
whatever.
I loved it when they did Go Fest. I love it when they have like the regional, which they can't do, like the Philadelphia when you were supposed to be out here for that.
Yeah.
But the game always works best when it goes back to its roots, which is Pokemon you don't have, going out and catching them, and objectives, and that's what it looks like they're about to do.
Yes. Yeah. So hopefully this will wisen them up, and that Gen 6 is almost here. And hopefully they get back to doing events more regularly. Because it's been a while. It's been I think 15 months since we've had a new generation, and it kind of the game has been a slog since then. Yeah.
Well, and again, like they need to do, in my opinion, they should be doing a better job of putting some more Pokemon in the game that not everyone has. Yeah. Right. Like even when I do open it up every once in a while. Don't get me wrong. Like my son asked me to when we're out, or I'm just out for a walk, and I say, I open it up, and it's everything I already have. Yeah. Give me a reason. Give me a reason to come back, right? Every once in a while, put something out where there's a lot of Pokemon out that I don't have. Yeah. You can do that in a craftful way that's not going to make me leave the game. But I've been off the game mostly. I've said I was playing it every day for a year. Yeah. And I'd say I've played it 5 times in the last 6 months, maybe. Not that long. Maybe 3 months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. They're running into the problem, and this is what they're terrified of running out of. They're terrified of running out of Pokemon because obviously they can update and add what's been into the game for so long. That's why they're already adding Gen 9 Pokemon, the Galar region Pokemon, the alternatives, right? Like it was a big deal, but it took me a day. It's like, oh, we've added Farfetch. We've added Farfetch to the Surfetch to the game. The evolution of Farfetch now in the Galar region. It took me a day. Took me a day to get that. I was happy they added it, but I need more. I need more than this.
Yeah, and again, they've succeeded with that in the past, and that's why I said go back to your roots. Go back to your roots. Get people back in the game. Again, I just think the Mega Evolutions were not fulfilling. That's what I'd say. If you do two of them,
I do not care at all about the Mega Decks. I do not care whatsoever.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not good when you've done 2 of them and you're like, okay, that's enough of that. Yep. It doesn't do anything for you. You know what I mean? But I remember catching Pokemon that were really rare or getting them out of eggs, and again the roots. It's like, wow, yes, this is great. I'm earning something.
Yeah, exactly. If I get a Mega along the way, during one of the Halloween events, I got enough Gengar candy, and I'm like, oh, cool, all right, Mega Gengar, whatever, yeah.
And then it goes away after 10 minutes. It's like,
it's like I don't care. It's nothing I can hold on to.
Nobody. I'm gonna say this. This is not just in gaming. Nobody wants something that goes away in 15 minutes. Yeah. Nobody. All right. Like in my opinion, I should say. All right. Yeah. You want something you can keep. The best part about Pokemon, in my opinion, is actually, or the most underestimated, is the Pokédex. Yeah. Look who I have. Look who I've collected. Yeah. That was the point.
Yeah. Well, how many do you have?
Right. That's the roots of Pokemon, not just this game. Right. And I think they got away from that a little bit too much. And the last generation they released, I haven't even seen half of those. I haven't even seen half of those in the wild.
Gen 5 still has a lot of blank spots, and it's like, why?
They should have been all over the place, and you could have. There's enough of them. You could have done one a week. Again, I don't understand. The logic here is too much. Again, Ray and I are logical people. Yeah. You could have done one a week and said, "Hey, next week this is coming, and then next week this is coming." Guess what? That's going to make me do, Ray.
Keep playing. Yeah. Play consistently.
Right. You got to keep people coming back.
Yeah. Speaking of things that kept people coming back, he's not going to be able to do that any longer. Finally, after 30 years, the Undertaker, the Dead Man, the man from Death Valley, is retiring from wrestling. Officially, he is hanging up his boots and hat. and his
urn.
jacket, his urn. He's had a long, great career. I mean, the dude, but it's Survivor Series this past Sunday though. He officially retired. Vince McMahon came out, gave some very touching words. By the way, Vince McMahon is really starting to look old now. I mean,
he's what is he, 80?
He's like 70, 70. I think he's 76, 77.
I mean, he's up there, man.
Yeah.
He clearly took PEDs, so.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that he's lost. Understandably so, he's lost a lot of the muscle mass that he used to carry around and stuff like that. And actually, funny, interesting Vince McMahon story we'll get to after this, but this is right now about the Undertaker. The Undertaker, of course, just easily, a legend amongst legends. Right? Like his not only for his gimmick and for his accomplishments in the ring, but for his loyalty to the company. Like he stayed with WWE, WWF during the tough years. He stuck with it. And that's why I think Vince loves him as much as his own children, is that like, this was a guy who was extremely, extremely loyal, never bit the hand that fed him, was willing to do whatever, whenever, obviously had some say in his gimmick, but for the most part was always willing to do whatever it took. Was just the consummate professional. And I imagine now he'll semi-retire. I'm sure like a lot of old wrestlers, he'll do stuff behind the scenes, maybe scout guys, train some guys, stuff like that. But for the most part, he looks like he's going to just retire with his wife and his kid, and good on him. Best of luck in the future. I remember when it was Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. It was you, me, a bunch of other folks from the broadcast department went to Hooters to watch this. Right. And we were all, the whole restaurant was chanting Undertaker.
Right. That was awesome.
When he beat Shawn Michaels, this was the kind of respect that this guy had, and
it's one of the best matches in his history too.
Oh yeah, for sure, and Michaels' history as well. Shawn, both of them. Brought the best out of each other. That was him catching Michaels in the moonsault into the tombstone. That was it's
acrobatical.
That was one of the first times you really started to see finishers get countered into other finishers, and it was like. Now you see RKOs out of nowhere all the time, all that stuff. But that was really one of the first times that really kind of happened, and it was just mind blowing. And it just what he did for wrestling, what he meant to wrestling, will be, I think, unmatched.
Yeah, what do you say that you haven't said? This is what I'll say: there has never been a greater character in wrestling history, ever. Ray, one thing that we have to touch on is this guy made it through the Attitude Era unchanged. He was the only character in that era, along with Kane, that was created to work with him. But when you look at the Attitude Era, where wrestling got very quote-unquote real, the Undertaker remained. It was only towards the end of the Attitude Era that he kind of turned into the biker for a little bit.
Right.
And then think about this. He's so beloved, he turned into another character, kind of, and then he returned to being the character that he was. How many people could pull that off without... Even The Rock couldn't pull that off.
Yeah.
When The Rock came back from movies, people were chanting, like, you're not a real wrestler anymore, or something like that.
Right,
you know what I mean? So he had struggles. I don't know anyone who's ever hated The Undertaker. I don't know anyone in wrestling history, fan or wrestler, that has ever said a bad thing about The Undertaker. Again, there were times when he was the biker, people were like, I don't get this, but he's still The Undertaker. Not to mention, has one of the most iconic finishers of all time in the Tombstone Piledriver.
Yeah.
Then when that becomes dangerous, he makes the last ride, which is just as satisfying.
Yes.
Not to mention walking the ropes, the games, the action figures, those little pillow things we all had as a kid.
Yeah.
We said this a few weeks ago. If there is a Mount Rushmore of wrestling, without question, he is on it. Without question. And like you said, through the WCW years, and now, with the competing wrestling companies, great. The only thing that I don't want to say irked me. That's not the right word. The only thing that was kind of tough was that he did this in the Thunderdome and not in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
And that did take something away from it.
Yeah.
And I do expect him to show up when there's studio audiences again.
Yeah.
Or like when they fill in the stadiums. I do expect him to come out one last time again in some form, just so he can say goodbye to the fans for real.
Yeah.
Look, if you follow any of the documentaries about him, his body is starting to fall apart. He can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's pretty obvious. And his matches have shown that he's not where he needs to be anymore to be at the peak level. And you got to respect the guy. But Hall of Fame, all-time top 3. I mean, there's no list he's not on.
Right.
We're talking about greatness within the WWE. And Vince, love that he said WWF during his goodbye. He didn't care. He said The Undertaker. Just like, and then we also have to mention, the Undertaker gets into his iconic pose. You can look this up, and a hologram of Paul Bearer showed up in the ring.
Yeah.
As he was doing that, which was a touching tribute.
Yeah.
In addition to all the classic wrestlers coming out to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Just well done in the current circumstances. I will say this again. I think you'll see him again when the crowds are back in some form.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree as well. And no, absolutely phenomenal. I also just want to briefly touch on the story I want to mention about Vince McMahon, which I thought was fascinating, that just came out as well this week, is that, speaking of how old Vince is, Rob Gronkowski, who of course was part of WrestleMania this year, revealed that he was terrified. So he basically did what's called a coffin drop, where he kind of just falls back onto a crowd from a high vantage point. But Gronkowski's a football player. He's not a wrestler. Was terrified to do the move in practice, which is another thing that, like, for anybody who's especially a celebrity, Vince, like, they're going to walk through everything. Gronkowski was terrified, and Vince's like, you want me to do it? He's like, what? He's like, you want me to do it? And so Vince, they have footage of this, and Vince gets up there 10 feet up and does the coffin drop into the mats at 76 years old. And I just thought that was a really fun and interesting story that nothing to do with The Undertaker, but more about Vince. Fine. But
look, again, I think a lot of people hold animosity towards Vince because of those Attitude Years. But you got to remember, that was a character. Yeah. This is one of the greatest business, owners in history.
Yeah.
In history. I'm talking. Listen, I'm putting him up there with, like, Rockefeller. Yeah. And another name I won't say right now just because I don't want to trigger anybody. And these great titans of industry. He's one of them. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. He's Steve Jobs is another great name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the respect has to be there for what he's created and what he's done, and especially at this age.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. And speaking of guys with respect for what they're doing at their age, we move into the NFL now. We move into sports.
Yes.
We'll kick things off with Monday Night Football. Tom Brady lost last night through 2 picks, including one very costly at the end of the game. The Rams win 27-24 to make a very tight NFC West now, as the Rams and Seahawks are tied at 7-3, and the Cardinals are 6-4. The Niners have fallen off almost completely, but they've been injury plagued like few other teams have this year. But just an absolute unbelievable game. The Rams show that they can hang with the big boys. The Bucs come up a little bit short. Now 2 full games behind the Saints, plus the Saints have the tiebreaker. So the Saints have all but already wrapped up the NFC South with they're up virtually by 3 with 6 to play. That's very difficult to make up in the NFL. Even with Taysom Hill now in as by the way, Drew Brees broke 11. They said it's 11. He broke every rib.
It's incredible.
He broke 11 ribs plus the punctured lung. I imagine he's going to want to try and come back, not to go out on that kind of a note, but I
don't know if you can come back from that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and not this year at least. Like, he's not coming back this year.
Every rib you got to think about your kids at that point. Like, you're getting towards territory you could die if you get hit the wrong way now.
Well, that's the thing is it's comeback player of the year with this year, right? Like, I'm amazed he did it. I'm glad he did it, but at some point, I'm shocked that Alex Smith is on a football field. He was this close to having his leg amputated. Right. Like, I'm glad he's playing. I mean, he's gonna have what is it, the flat tire, the limp leg, probably the rest of his life. He'll have to always wear that brace. But he was able to pull off a win against the Cincinnati Bungles this week. His first win in 3 years. He also did the first time, not this week, but back-to-back weeks against the Giants in a losing effort and the Lions in a losing effort. The first time in his career he had back-to-back 300-yard games. The guy can still play. Right. But the question is that, and we'll get into the NFC East in a little bit, but Washington improved to 3-7, and in our division, that means they're only a half a game back of first place. But the Giants, again, win by not playing as the Giants were on the bye. The Eagles found another way to lose against the Cleveland Browns. Tough, heartbreaking loss as Carson Wentz had...
Is it heartbreaking? Is heartbreaking the word we should use to describe the Eagles this year?
I mean, I'm thrilled whenever they lose, but...
it's been interesting, to say the least.
And people are talking about it now. We're talking about... I mean, they've been talking about it the whole year. And Lee, as the resident Philly fan here in the group, they're saying it's time to get rid of Wentz.
Yeah, I'm still not on that bandwagon. He needs to play better. Jalen Hurts maybe gets a start this season, depending on what happens. But the whole division sucks. Whole division sucks. I can't put everything on one quarterback. Every quarterback's been sucking in the NFC East this year.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we complaining about at the end of the year? Like, and I know Eagles fans. I know how Eagles fans think. The whole division's bad. I think what this is a lot of pent up like sports fans going, but the whole division's bad. We should be thriving. We're not that good. Yeah, you gotta be realistic about it. We're just not that good right now. The whole division's not that good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fight to the finish, as you said, Ray. Like suddenly the whole division's in play for every team.
Yeah, because even Dallas pulled out a big upset win against Minnesota. Minnesota looked like they were on a roll. They had won 3 in a row. A win against Dallas would have gotten them back to 500, would have put them right back in the playoff picture for a wild card. Instead, they lay an egg at home at US Bank Ballpark, or whatever the heck they call it there in Minnesota, and then the Cowboys came out and they played well. Andy Dalton back from a concussion. They ran the ball. It was Zeke's first 100-yard game of the year, which also shows what the heck is their offensive coordinator doing, not giving him the rock more.
I don't know, man. I still don't understand that one.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But they pulled off the win. The Cowboys pulled off the win. Their defense still looks like it's in shambles, but the offense put up enough points to pull out a victory. And now they're 3-7. So you have 4 teams with 3 wins, and the Eagles holding on because of that tie.
Right. Yeah. And the Eagles play the Seahawks this week, which is going to have major implications on that division.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Look, if you're an NFC East fan of any team, it is what it is. I'm trying not to get too critical. It doesn't bother me right now if the Eagles win or lose. I'm not holding on to any hopes of a Super Bowl run here.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And, honestly, it's like watching 4 teams stumble over each other. Let's see who gets to the finish line. It's entertaining in that sense, in a funny way now.
Yeah.
Giants could win the division, Ray.
Every team can win the division now. It's down to the last 6 games.
What I want to know.
The Giants play the Bengals this week.
Is if the Giants win the division, led by Daniel Jones, I want to see what you're gonna do.
Look, if the Giants are 6-10 and they win the division, I'm still not gonna get on the not gonna get on the Daniel Jones train.
He's not a dumpster fire anymore at that point. He's just a fire.
Right. He's not a dumpster fire. He's just like a smoldering pile of ashes. But
there you go. Yeah.
But he'll be upgraded, but I still won't be happy with a 6-10 division win. That'll be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean the division's a joke, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you got to approach it each week like that. Each week it's going to be a joke. I'll tell you this: we're going to have some great division games at the end of the season. That's all I'll say. They'll be entertaining to watch.
Well, and another big one this week on Thanksgiving. Again, if you're listening the day of this, Dallas versus Washington. That game is going to have huge implications. If Washington,
one of the teams will take the lead in the division.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. And they'll take a possible temporary lead. The Giants play the Bengals on Sunday. The Eagles play the Seahawks on Monday.
And again, the Eagles are crazy. They might beat a team like the Seahawks. You never know what Eagles team's going to show up.
I mean, you beat the Niners when nobody thought you could beat the Niners. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the Seahawks coming off a big win this past Thursday against the Cardinals, 23-16. Their defense finally showed up. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them going forward, as they also have an 11-day break after Thursday Night Football. They don't play again until the following Monday. So that's a very long break for them. But yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens with the NFC, as especially you got a log jam in the NFC West. You technically have a log jam in the NFC East. And then you have the North. The Packers are running away with it. The Saints are running away with the South. So those 2 teams will be there. It's just a matter of who gets the bye.
Real quick, that interesting football stat of the day, that Tom Brady, 199th pick in the 2000 draft,
Yes.
was picked off by the 199th pick in the 2020 draft. I just thought that was an amazing stat.
Yeah, which sealed the game for the Rams, yeah.
Right. It also shows Tom Brady is human after all.
Yeah.
And still an amazing quarterback, even though he's not immortal right now.
Yeah, no, he's beginning. You're starting to see the flaws a bit more, trying to do a bit much. He overthrew the receiver last night. In the AFC, that's really starting to get interesting as well. The Dolphins get upset by the Broncos. Dolphins had a chance to jump into first place against Buffalo, or at least a tie for first. Because of that loss, though, Buffalo stays in first in the bye week. The Dolphins are in second. The Patriots continue to plummet down the standings as they blow a game that they should have. Again, a Houston Texans team that has not played to their potential this year, but for some reason got up against Cam Newton, and the Patriots lose again by a touchdown. Again, another one-score game. Their playoff hopes are all but over now, as other teams continue to win and continue to pull away from the pack.
I guess there's going to be a lot of Bruins fans in Boston next year.
In the winter, yeah, because it looks like the Patriots season is done. The Jets fall to 0-10. No surprise there. The Chargers get a win. A team, by the way, that has lost all 7 of their losses have been by 7 points or less. The Chargers.
Well, yeah. Amazing.
So that was a team that's Justin Herbert, who looks like now rookie of the year after Joe Burrow went down. His knee is in bad shape. Both his ACL and his MCL he tore. So a heartbreaking loss there for the number 1 pick, again in that losing effort against Washington, as now Washington ties the Giants for knocking out 2 quarterbacks this year. That's the thing that we're leading the league in, is how many quarterbacks have you broken this year? 2.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, the Ravens blow another game against the Titans. The Titans look like their old self starting to get back, wake back up in a tie with the Colts. The Colts upset the Packers in overtime, even though the Packers, again, still running away with the NFC North because that division is meh.
So basically what you're saying is outside the NFC East, there's good football happening in all other places.
There was a ton of good football that happened this week outside of the NFC Eastern teams.
Right.
So, the Chiefs and Raiders game. The Raiders so close to knocking off the Chiefs for the second time this year. That's the only blemish on the Chiefs' record. But the Chiefs go to Vegas. Last second drive, Mahomes finds Kelsey in the back of the end zone with 20 seconds left or so to seal the deal, 35-31. But the Raiders, John Gruden knows quarterbacks. Derek Carr is playing the best football of his life. And the Raiders are on the cusp of a playoff berth. So it's going to be you have 3 teams in the AFC at 6-4, all tied for that last 7 seed with the Ravens, and I can't remember the other one. So
Ray, it is now time for me to ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a fair question now, and you have to answer them both. Okay, will the Steelers go undefeated this year? They are 10-0.
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think they will drop one at some point.
Will the Jets go defeated this year, becoming the second team in NFL history to not win a game?
Third. They will be the third at this point.
The third. That's what I said. I said third.
Yes, the Jets will go winless, but the Steelers will not have a perfect season.
Okay, I had to ask. And then the Chiefs are 9-1. Will they lose another game this season?
I'm not sure what their schedule is, but I think odds are they will lose another game at some point.
Let's take a look. Okay, their schedule coming up. They have the Bucks, they have the Broncos, they have the Dolphins. Those are the next 3. Okay.
The Bucks game is interesting depending on what Bucks team shows up. Tom Brady versus Mahomes.
Then they have after the Dolphins, they have the Saints, the Falcons, and the Chargers to finish the season.
They could also lose to the Saints. So yeah, there's a couple in there, and also again we talk about this all the time with divisional matchups. Don't count Denver out, I would say. And Miami is playing better than normal, but I think those are the games where obviously they'll be heavily favored in. The Tampa Bay and Saints game, those could be like games decided by like a late field goal or something. I think those will be close.
Right. So we're at that part of the season where we have to start looking at stuff like that.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, again, the Chiefs will obviously run away with the division
easily.
But now with only one bye, the Steelers look like they're going to get the bye week in the AFC. That's a big deal. So that the defending champs will have to play week 1 of the playoffs, even if they go 14-2. Like
I'm okay with that, though. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, the Steelers, they have the Ravens this coming week on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. Again, as we're talking,
That's a must-watch game if you're a football fan.
Yeah,
must-watch.
The Ravens,
Lamar Jackson versus Roethlisberger, must-watch.
This is look. The Ravens' season might be on the line if they drop to 6-5. And the Browns and the Titans and the Colts and the Raiders continue to win, the Ravens might start to fall out of the playoff picture. So this is a must-win for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of like the Rams a few years ago. Everybody thought they were going to go on this major run for a decade, and they just fallen off the face of the earth. So,
yeah.
And I don't want to see Lamar Jackson do that because he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
I don't want their peak to be losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year. I don't want that to be their peak. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I got you for sure. But speaking of the Ravens, something we need to quickly touch upon is the NFL's COVID response. They are starting to crack down even more. It is now mandatory for players to wear masks on the sidelines. Right. Because the Ravens, all their running backs now have COVID. Coming into this week, half the Raiders' defense had COVID.
Right.
We hate to talk about this, but Lee, at some point, I mean, it does look like we are going to power through this season, despite the COVID cases that continue to pop up here around the NFL.
It's being conveniently kind of ignored in terms of the larger mass media approach to it.
Which is why I don't want to ignore it.
Right. No, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, people are kind of acting like that. But honestly, the whole nation's kind of acting like, it's okay. It's okay. That 100,000 whatever a day. It's okay. It's not okay. But
no, we're up to 260,000 dead. It's not okay.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is either an athlete's going to die.
Yeah.
Or these restrictions are going to work.
Yeah. I mean, you credit where it is. I mean, the NFL continues to crack down more and more on everything that's happening, but with
my mic's not working. Sorry, the NFL has done I'll say adequate job. Hasn't been amazing.
Yeah.
It's not NHL or NBA level.
Right.
But they've done an adequate job. They clearly are doing what baseball didn't, which is, hey, guys, think about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Baseball was a train wreck this year, so
right.
It's adequate. They're constantly trying to make it better. I mean, I think that's all we can ask.
I mean, at the very least, unlike baseball, when somebody tests positive, that person's immediately quarantined and locked down. So we've had these. I think that's part of the reason it hasn't been shined a light on as much as well as whereas in baseball, entire teams and organizations were getting this because they weren't properly shutting these guys down. I mean, Justin Turner got 10 people sick in the World Series celebration. Like, at the football is like, oh, your running back room is sick. Everybody's locked down. You practice from home. And Roethlisberger, who was in danger, who didn't get it, but he was exposed to someone who had it. He was like, it's the weirdest thing in the world. I'm just watching the practices from home on Zoom, but I know that this is the right thing that had to be done. And they came out and they won that week, so it didn't really, it is
what it is, man. Like, it is what it is. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, the NFL's awareness of this is far stronger than the MLB, and that's, again, we can rank these things now as NHL, NBA, NFL, and MLB, like 50 feet of crap, and then the MLB. That's how I rank that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But moving on now, speaking of the NHL bubble, some fun NHL stories. We talked about...
It's a great story. Yeah.
We talked about...
Kim Ang.
Thank you. Yes, we talked about Kim Ang, the Marlins general manager now. The Florida Panthers have hired Brett Peterson, the first black man to ever hold an assistant general manager position in the NHL. Right. So that's a big deal for them, and hopefully, imagine at some point he'll move up even further in the ranks, as you typically happens as you climb the ladder. GM is the next spot. And also Kendall Coyne Schofield, former USA women's hockey player, has now been hired. Captain has been hired by the Chicago Blackhawks. She's now the third woman in the Blackhawks front office, the first for player development, I believe. So this is a big deal, as you're starting to see. We saw it with Kim Ang last week that we're having again, the diversity is starting to find its way into.
It's a renaissance. Yeah.
Yes, as well as it should, and it's a big deal to see hockey help to lead the way. As not to say, but hockey has typically not been at the forefront of diversity historically. Although
they are not. No.
You're making obviously efforts
yeah.
to change it. Change
Yeah,
it.
look, I'll kind of echo what we said last week because the sentiments are the same. Minority, female, whatever. These are glass ceilings that are being broke.
Yes.
These are qualified individuals.
Yes.
I really get annoyed when people comment that it's a gimmick hire. Oh, it's just doing it because of the time. No, the time is allowing qualified people to be hired. Yeah. That's the truth. It's opened up some eyes. When glass ceilings start coming down, it opens up the door for a lot of people. I've said this before, for my daughter, for my wife, for an African-American to see that it is possible to be in that position. That is a bigger deal than the position itself.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to say this for the 15th time. These are qualified individuals.
Yes.
Qualified. All right. Schofield is one of the best skaters in women's hockey history. And in general, I believe she broke the NHL All-Star best time or missed it by a tenth of a second. So she clearly can play.
Yeah.
Right. And as the player development coach for the Chicago Blackhawks, it's just wonderful. Qualified people are there, and if they're not qualified, they'll get fired. But for today, this is major victories all around.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to see happening in sports, and we wanted to shine another light on that. And yeah, good on the Blackhawks and good on the Panthers for making those moves. And we'll see how. Obviously, like Lee said, we'll see what happens if they don't show up. If they don't do the job, they'll be fired like anybody else. Yeah, but in this moment, this is a great moment, and good for them. And hope to wish them great success. Just not against my Rangers. Other front office news: Theo Epstein, the Magic Man, the man who broke the curse for the Red Sox, broke the curse for the Cubs, is taking a year off. He's stepping away from the Cubs. He's taking a year off, stepping away from baseball. Doesn't know where he'll go. Doesn't know what his future lies. But he's tired, and he's going to hang up his clipboard and his money clip and step away from the GM of the Cubs. I hate him because of what he did with the Red Sox, but there's no denying he is arguably the greatest general manager, at least of the modern era for baseball, if not easily. All time. Like, I mean, he obviously.
If there was a Mount Rushmore, he'd be on it.
Yeah, like for what he did with those two of the most floundering franchises, he turned them around in only a few years, and then turned them into perennial World Series contenders. The Red Sox have won, 3 of the 4 World Series championships of the past 20 years for the Red Sox can be attributed to Epstein. Then obviously the Cubs in 2016. So, I mean, like, the dude is...
if you're making a Mount Rushmore, he's on it. Branch Ricky's probably on it.
Yeah, like, there's it's not many for sure, right?
No, I mean, Branch Rickey would be on there 100%.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, brought Jackie Robinson into baseball.
Yeah.
The Yankees would have someone on there.
Yeah, the one who built the dynasty franchises, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, all that. Like, yeah, there's not many, but Theo Epstein, and now of course I'm already going to say this. Mets fans are like, he's leaving to come to us. Hold your horses.
No. Yeah, we'll see.
Hold your horses. The dude is so stressed from fixing 2 of the worst franchises in baseball history. Going to the Mets might kill him. Like honestly, hold your horses.
He wants to go to teams that can win.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, he saw
such a Mets fans thing to say, by the way. Oh, he's coming here.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like Mets fans are terrible. Worst fans in baseball, possibly. That's something, but it's true.
Well, people say it's Miami, but I'm like, well, they don't have fans. So
yeah, no, exactly.
They have fans. So.
Oh goodness! So that actually does it for the sports section. The short, sweet sports section this week.
Well, there's only one sport on TV right now, so it is.
That's part of the reason why. Exactly, not as many.
Come back in January, we'll have more.
Yes. I mean, NBA free agency is going on. Guys are moving back and forth. The Knicks are making stupid moves as usual because they're the Knicks. If you want to briefly touch on that, Austin Rivers was signed to a 3-year deal. Doc Rivers' son. Why? I don't know. Because they're terrible.
I do want to note, too, Ray, with the NHL, something we alluded to after the NHL season ended was that, and I said this, and I'm patting myself on the back a little bit because people fought me on this. Mm-hmm. I said there would be a CBA issue after the season ended, and they're having a CBA issue with money. People, well, the CBA is signed, and I said they're going to have to renegotiate it because there's no fans. And the NHL and the NHLPA are having some problems right now agreeing on terms for the season. Yeah. Hopefully they can figure that out quickly because if they don't, if they can't figure that out, it's going to be a problem to start the season.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's going to be, I mean, again, the clock is ticking, folks. because the season's supposed to kick off beginning of January. So
January 1.
Yeah.
New Year's Day, they're supposed to start the season. I think they will get to it, but obviously the owners are saying, look, we can't pay you as much because there's no revenue coming in. And I'll be honest with you, the owners are probably right.
Yeah.
All right, I know people like to take the players' side on these things, but the NHL owners are probably correct in saying, guys, we got to be realistic here.
Yeah.
We're not pulling in any fans.
Yeah.
This is what we can pay you. And the players should probably just take that or at least negotiate smart.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because you can't have a strike. You can't have another strike. Not right now.
Not right now.
No. So we'll see what happens. But we'll see what happens. Like you said, about 6 weeks until hockey starts. So that brings us to our mashup. Our mashup. Our question.
Mashup.
Yes. Our question today is what classic game would you like to see get DLC? We talked about a lot of DLC coming for a lot of games. We talked about, obviously, a lot of new games, a lot of things getting updates. But what classic game, if you could, like from the olden times, get an update because you're starting to see now some DLC start to come out for newer stuff. So
right, and the rules here are this: this is a fantasy world in which your favorite Nintendo game can get a DLC. Okay, so that's what we're trying to say. It can be any game. It has the ability to get a DLC. What would it be? Obviously, let us know by commenting below. We want to know what you think on this one. Ray, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes. So okay. my game is I want Turtles in Time DLC.
Yes. Excellent choice.
Thank you. I want new time periods, new levels, new bosses, and maybe even new characters you could fight with. Turtles have a lot of allies over the course of their history. Let's open up a whole new door. Let's blow it out. Let's.
It was a great game.
It was a terrific game. It was the peak of the side-scrolling beat 'em ups. I think that adding stuff to that game would be easy. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think a lot of fans would truly appreciate it, and especially now that the history has grown so much, especially with the IDW comics over the last 10 years. You could really get some really interesting characters into this game. Like, you could have, like, modern Donatello take on old Hob, which is a mutant cat. Like, it's like, there's, like, you could have, like, a lot of interesting things, like, added to the game here, and I would love to see the Triceratons. There's a whole gamut you could do here if you added DLC to that. So for me, one of my favorite games growing up, Turtles in Time, Turtles 4, make it happen. DLC, because we've already had it brought back to Xbox 360 and Xbox One. They remastered it. So bring it now to Xbox Series X with new levels, characters, time periods.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
Ray, I've got two.
Okay.
One of them's kind of a fan favorite, kind of obvious. I'd like to see, this kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier. I'd like to see GoldenEye have some new levels, or at least some new fighting platforms for friends to go to Slappers Only and make that more fun, because, you know, it was based off a movie. But my other one's a super classic game. I'm going to go back to the late 80s, early 90s. I'd like to see some DLC for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Ooh.
Right? There's a lot that's happened in Mike Tyson's life since that game came out. And as much as I love Soda Popinski and King Hippo, I think there's a lot you could do in that game to bring back Little Mac and even fight Old Tyson.
Yeah, that would be fun. I think fighting. I was thinking about that, like an old Tyson coming in.
An old Tyson,
but instead he's like the referee because he's just super zen or something.
Right. Well, he's about to box again. He's about to have a boxing match. That's true.
He's going to do that. He's going to do that exhibition match.
Right. So I would like some DLC to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, not Punch-Out, not any of the sequels. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I would like some DLC to that.
Nice. I think those are very strong choices by both of us.
I agree. What do you think? We want to know what you think.
Yes. Comment below. Yes. Please do let us know what you think. What classic game you grew up with would you like to see get DLC, get updated for a modern time? But on that note, look at that. I think we've had this was a smooth episode for us. Nice.
It was. Well, it is Thanksgiving Day if you're listening to this.
Yes.
We want to make sure you get your dinner and watch football.
Right.
So
yeah.
Or if you're watching this after, we're just nice.
Yeah. Or if you're camping out on a Black Friday line or on your computer, like waiting on a digital line or whatever, you can be listening to us. So
you could be. Yes, and we appreciate you for doing that.
Yes, for sure. For sure, much what we very much do. So again, like we said earlier in the show, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have a great weekend. Get some good rest. As we of course head towards into the end of the year, it should be a fun holiday season coming up for us. For Lee, I'm Ray. This has been episode 84 of Geeks Who Like Sports. See you next week, everybody. Take care. Happy holiday. Have a happy Thanksgiving again.